Hello, folks. This is Joe from Ihsahn. I am doing a rare out-of-state interview at MAGFest. I'm here with two members of Night of the Round, Justin and Adam. How are you two doing today?
Doing very good. Enjoying our MAGFest so far.
Yeah, man. It's always a good time at MAGFest, and this year is like every other in that regard.
I mean, it's been a few years since the last time I interviewed them, and I was itching to do another interview with them because, by my standards, the last interview was like okay at best, and I'm way better now. And I also have a lot more questions. I mean, if you go back and check out that last interview, it clearly seemed like I had no idea who the hell these two were, or the whole band at the time, but I'm more familiar now. So I wanted a chance at redemption. So for those who are listening to this interview, Night of the Round is a Final Fantasy metal cover band. And Justin Taylor is the patriarch, creator of the project, and the guitarist. Adam is the bassist.
That's right.
So, I mentioned Final Fantasy metal. So out of the 48 songs that you've recorded so far, 9 of them are from Final Fantasy IX. Why is Final Fantasy IX so special?
That's funny you say that because I didn't notice that until like 2 of our albums were like done. Like I have a disproportionate amount of Final Fantasy IX songs, so it was totally by accident. I mean, the soundtracks are special. That soundtrack in particular is really special. It is, Uematsu's personal favorite of scores that he's composed. So, it totally happened by accident. The music's great. That's really all there is to it, and just kind of happened to just pan out that way. I did on our most recent releases, the Sin and the War of the Triad. Does not have any Final Fantasy IX, obviously, because those are 2 thematic releases. But and it's weird because on the newer material that I kind of got cooking in my head, there are more Final Fantasy IX songs. But I'm trying I'm trying to think of as I really shouldn't put these on there. I have too much Final Fantasy IX going on. But at the same time, if the songs work for what we do, they're gonna work regardless. So
we would end up doing them at some point anyway.
Yeah.
So
I mean, no one's gonna be like, God, could you please stop playing Final Fantasy IX music?
Well, what's also funny about that is that we took all of our Final Fantasy IX out of the set by accident. So as much music that we do have from 9, I think, did I say 7? From 9, yeah. we actually are bringing a Final Fantasy IX track back into the set at MAGFest.
Okay.
It's kind of a little secret that nobody knows, but we do have a song that we're going to be playing tonight for the first time on an old release from Final Fantasy IX.
Okay.
But
I was definitely going to go into like your set later on in this interview.
Sure.
So in our past interview, you've mentioned that Meshuggah and Testament were some of the death and thrash metal influences in your sound. Were there any other bands from those particular genres that were an influence?
Not necessarily. Well, I mean, with the thrash side, yeah, I'd say, because I guess I was really into Slayer before I was into Testament. I kind of discovered Testament later and was like, hey, I like this better. But I know more, like, I'm more familiar with Slayer's music, honestly. I just prefer Testament, so I kind of like to list that as more of my influence than Slayer. Not that I dislike Slayer by any means. But,
no, for sure.
So Slayer was definitely one of those kind of influences that kind of...
Influence of influence.
Yeah, or that I just don't speak of as much as maybe I should.
I love old school Sepultura, especially the Arise album.
I never got into Sepultura. I think I'm the only one in the band that was never huge on Sepultura for whatever reason. I don't know.
Fair. I mean, how dare you, sir? Like something different from me.
Yeah. But I know that generally speaking, I'm like an underdog in that situation. But hey, different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Fair enough. I've also enjoyed the black metal sections that pop up from time to time. Which black metal band served as an influence?
Primarily Demu, Borgir. I mean, I'm just a sucker for symphonic black metal in general, and I just always felt that they do it better than anybody. I've always felt that way. I also listen to a little bit of, Emperor, and, I don't go too deep down into the symphonic black metal hole, because like most genres with me, I usually latch onto a few bands, 1 or 2 bands of each genre that pretty much each genre that exists, and kind of latch onto those bands and kind of don't go too far down into the rabbit hole of each genre. That's kind of how I am in general. Like, I'll listen to 1 or 2 technical death metal bands. I'll listen to 1 or 2 power metal bands, 1 or 2, proggy bands, 1 or 2, whatever, gent bands. Like
that's fair.
there's literally only, I don't know. It's just I like to keep things basic, I guess.
Emperor is my black metal band of choice by far.
So I have a note on this. So this is important, actually. I worked with Justin on arranging the last song on Sin on the EP that we did, the Final Fantasy X one, and a huge influence on that was Alcest and Death Heaven.
Okay.
Because Justin and I share interest in both of those bands big time. Like, I'm really big into that Cascadian black metal, post-black metal scene, the doom gaze stuff, too. And, like, that was something that we made a focal point, like, how would they approach something like a Final Fantasy piece? And we did that, so I was proud of that.
Actually, I do have a side question for you, Justin. Why do you wish the production standard for black metal was higher?
I guess just being like a production snob, and just because I have a hand in mixing our stuff. I don't know. I've always.
You're free from judgment here, sir. I'm not gonna.
No, yeah, no. I've.
You're not K-Velts enough.
I've answered this before, like for friends and stuff, and I don't know. It's not that I hate raw, crusty production to an extent, but I don't know. I don't think it's a coincidence that Puritanical is everybody's favorite Demon Borg Gear album. It's mostly because the production is fantastic and everything is crystal clear. That's my take of it. When people tend to like albums that sound better and wonder why they like them better, I don't think it's a question why they like it better. That's my take of it.
No, but for me, like with black metal, especially like some of the earlier releases, I can't imagine listening to them with the higher production, because it just, I don't know, it would just take away some of the, not necessarily the word, I don't think charm is the word that I'm looking for.
Sure.
But like in the Nightside Eclipse by Emperor, I couldn't imagine that being like crystal clear production, because like, now I will admit Wrath of the Tyrant could definitely do with better production, but it just it seems like part of the appeal to me. I do like listening to shitty production black metal, depending on the bands. But I'm not also going to be one to completely cut off like, this hasn't been recorded in a cave enough for my liking, so I'm going to have to...
Okay, so I also am like I love black metal too, and I actually Justin knows I get way more into like the gnarly production side than he does, and that's because I myself am not an engineer. I do a lot of music in other ways, but I don't incorporate computers into that much, right? And I think that there's some element of the precision that I now, like, as a musician who is in a band that is production focused, like, there's some element to the production that I pay attention to now, and I'll miss it on modern releases if it's not well produced, because there's riffing there's technicality, there's nuance. And the thing about early Dark Throne is that there wasn't any nuance to notice there, right? Like, there was... What happened when Celtic Frost got good production was people realized they didn't actually like Celtic Frost. Not that Celtic Frost was good, right? So there's some element of like taking the sheet off, and like this is coming from someone who like listens to Celtic Frost on purpose, knowing that he doesn't like them anymore, So there's some level of that, And I think that if I were to try and articulate how I felt, and I think Justin probably would agree with that, it's like there's some real musicianship and real proficiency happening here, and it's like a real missed opportunity to not let that shine through, because modern guitar is so different from where black metal started in a lot of ways, not in every way. I would never take anything away from Emperor, right? But it's just not the same thing anymore, and that technical prowess is better shown than hidden.
Well, I think there's also a balance too, like everything else. Like I think one of the and it's not a poorly produced or mixed album, but like I personally think like the ideal black metal production, not that they're necessarily a hardcore black metal band, is The Satanist by Behemoth. I absolutely love the production because it's just it's good and everything is clear, but it's still a little bit raw. It still has that aesthetic, that
the ambiance.
So I do feel like there's a balance of like some modern, perfectly produced band recorded a black metal album. It would sound weird. It would not sound like correct. It would not. Yeah, it would sound off. So yeah.
Well, that's fair. Now, I know that Final Fantasy is your main project. Were there any other video game properties that you would like to do covers of?
Yeah, here and there. Not so much recently, but I have put out material. I have covered other songs.
I know you did a cover of Promise from Silent Hill 2 recently.
Yeah, I did that.
Well, you assisted with that.
I did that with my girlfriend. Yeah, that was a fun little kind of random project that we kind of threw together last minute. But I've done things like that in the past too. I've put out other Silent Hill covers. Actually, I've done like a Donkey Kong track. I've done a Chrono Trigger track, and those would usually be part of big compilations. I had a song on the Chrono Trigger compilation that came out a few years ago, the Chronicles of Time. Sorry, but I do those not necessarily not under the Night of the Round moniker. Those are just done under Justin Taylor.
That's fair. Now, actually, I would like to go into, because you already talked about other projects, I would like to go into that subject. So, you made an album called Vagrant. So, what was the inspiration behind that album?
Vagrant was my my musical release of non-video game music. I've always wanted to put out an album of just my music, as most musicians do. But being so cooped up in the Night of the Round mindset for so many years, I guess I didn't have the time I thought I didn't have the time to create any original music. So I slowly worked on music for about 6 months. Before you know it, I had 3 songs. Once I realized, I was like, I almost have an EP. I kind of hunkered down and finished that. Polished the songs a little bit, did some rearranging, added some additional layers of music, some piano parts and some orchestra and stuff like that. And before you know it, I had an EP, and it felt good to get that EP out. Even though I don't necessarily promote it heavily anymore or anything like that. It was really good to get something out that wasn't Night of the Round.
It was a solid album, dude.
Thank you. I think it holds up pretty well.
Was there a particular theme to that project?
Not necessarily. It was just I was going through some personal issues at the time, and I was able to channel that through my music, and I don't know. I guess I used it just as like an emotional outlet at the time.
Oh, that's fair.
So it kind of worked out with timing wise of what was going on in my personal life, with the fact that it was time for me to put out some original material.
No, I mean, I enjoyed the tracks Desist and Hominid Delusion, because especially with Hominid Delusion, the symphonic part of that reminded me of The Eruption by Emperor. Okay. At points.
Thank you. Yeah, that's hands down my favorite track on that album too. I'm really, really proud of that one.
All right. Are there any more solo stuff coming down the road potentially?
Never say never, but I don't have any plans to right now. Because I think for all of us, music is supposed to be fun, and right now I'm having way too much fun with Night of the Round. Excellent. Now that stuff has gotten a little bit busier and more serious with this project. I don't know. I'm just focusing my creative energy on Night of the Round right now.
No, it's completely cool, dude, and understandable.
Yeah.
Now, for you, Adam, what can you tell me about Mr. Saturn?
Okay, so Mr. Saturn is my alias. I perform like live video art with chiptune artists, and I do that with some video synthesizer software that kind of emulates an analog video synth. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I get to meet a lot of really crazy people from a lot of crazy places around the world. At MAGFest this weekend, I'm VJing like a hotel room party later on tonight.
Nice.
With a couple of my friends who are like Detroit hardcore, Detroit chiptune guys, and it's like a bit of a reunion for us. I don't see them often. When they come through Chicago, we put them up and we let them play our shows because I'm part of a chiptune collective there called Bit by Bit, and what we try to do is bring people that are chip music adjacent through, right? And give demo scene music a place to play, and weird electronic artists and drone guys and, guys. I'm sorry, I'm using the word guys, and that's not the right way to handle this. I want to address this. We have a hugely, awesomely well-represented group of performers at our scene and in our space, and we're constantly striving to be more inclusive, and that scene is big on inclusivity, and that was not the right phrasing for me to use there, and I'm addressing that publicly. Because I respect both my attendees and your listeners. So.
No, that's fair.
You can cut that if you want to. But.
No, I'm leaving that in. You bigot. No, far from it, dude. One of the coolest people I know, folks. Have you collaborated with Snesei?
Yeah, he's honestly one of my favorite chiptune guys, and he's one of the Detroit homies that I'm playing with tonight. I hope I get to VJ for him tonight. The last time he came through Chicago, it was like one of my favorite things to do. I actually I have this really weird little project that's not really functioning anymore with my friend Jason called Bone Storm, and we started it out as a VGM project. That's actually how I met Night of the Round. But Bone Storm was a vessel for us to do a Shovel Knight cover,
Okay.
and the next thing we were going to release was a Snesei cover. So it's funny. So weird and I love that kid's music. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, since you have the microphone, actually, I wanted to talk to you two about your musical interest. Adam, favorite songs or albums by Portal? Mutual
man.
interest for us.
Oh man, Ion
A
is
love.
is it for me right now. Like Vexavoid, I was really, really into Vexavoid, but I like the production on the new stuff a lot, and it seems a lot more hellish and a lot more
It does.
that black hole well of despair production. They've really. Now that the production is more clear, you can hear that the level of technicality to the music is perverse, and that's like part of it, and that's exciting for me. So I like that.
I mean, I love Outra.
Yeah,
The murkiness of that.
yeah.
Favorite songs by Bongripper.
Oh man, Worship is my favorite Bongripper song. Bongripper is like my actual favorite band.
I do like the song Satan off of that album.
Yeah. I mean, Satan is their more black metal side of that, but you have tapped into my deepest well, my friend. Doom metal is my place. Yeah.
All right. Justin, do you have any favorite songs by Ihsahn? Like the solo projects?
Yeah,
like his prog albums?
Or
Or you can go with albums.
his I still think After is his best solo release. That album, from start to finish, is just
After, that's the one with
phenomenal.
Frozen Lakes on Mars,
yes.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I did like his newest release. Is amazing as well. I
have not heard. Is it Amber?
Amber. I'm not sure.
Have not heard that yet.
Pronouncing it right. It is amazing. It is absolutely phenomenal. I don't know. I prefer After just 'cause I think it just has more of a sentimental like. That album blew my mind.
You love
from
the
him.
horns, don't you? This is the sax.
I do quite a bit. It's funny because like a lot of metal bands seem to be incorporating saxophones in their music lately, and
Psy from Japan.
I like it, but I don't know. I'm maybe getting a little burnt out on it on a lot of the modern bands that are doing it. But that album, he nails it so well. I don't know. It's just something about that album has a little
No, that's
soft
fair.
spot for me.
One of the tracks actually from Ihsahn that just came out of nowhere for me, but I really dug was M off of Das Seelebrechen. It was the one that sounded like it just went into like a Pink Floyd blues riff. Yeah, that's just like how, and they kept saying how many cuts till you die, and I was just like, wow, I was not expecting that. And that riff, like when he kicked into that, like gave me goosebumps. Even thinking about it right now, my hair's standing up on my arms. Now, Justin, are you familiar with any of his solo projects, like former projects like Peccatum, Star of Ash, Thou Shalt Suffer, or Zyklon B?
I'm actually not. I'm not familiar with his other projects aside from, of course, Emperor and his solo,
that's
Ihsahn
fair.
stuff. Yeah, I just never went too far down that because that album, his solo album, was actually introduced to me by a friend. Because I did enjoy Emperor, but I was never like
that's fair.
as into Emperor as I was Demu. So I wasn't like a diehard Emperor fan. So I had to get shown Ihsahn solo stuff by a friend, and then so I kind of just stuck to that and didn't go too far down the.
All right. Now, as we're getting to the tail end of this interview, I wanted to cover two more topics. Sure. Since we're at MAGFest, what was your first MAGFest experience?
My first physical MAGFest experience was when we played in 2013. It was when they were calling them by numerical order. It was MAGFest 11. That was the first time we got booked to play, and that was the first time of me going as well. But my first actual MAGFest experience was the year prior. I watched YouTube videos of Earthbound Papas playing right down the hallway before they had concerts where they have him now. They had him in one of the panel rooms. Watching YouTube videos of the Earthbound Papas play because, of course, Uematsu, like the fact that he played a live concert in the States kind of blew my mind, and the fact that I wasn't there really upset me, and it just kind of, I don't know, something just kind of clicked, and I was like, I'm not letting this happen again. Like, I'm going to the next MAGFest. And then that was kind of, coincidentally, that's when the band started to kind of pick up again. Because we had started the band originally, and then we kind of put it on hiatus, and then the band was in the early stages of, like, hey, let's take this seriously. Right when I saw those videos of Earthbound Papa's playing and seeing a front row camp, somebody shot the Final Fantasy VII, boss theme, those who fight further, and the fact that wasn't me just really, like, I don't know, I coughed it up as like a learning lesson, like, okay, well, that's not happening again. I'm going to be at the next MAGFest. And so we decided to just, hey, let's take the band a little bit more seriously and put out an album, and let's try to get booked to play this thing. And that's what we did, and we ended up getting booked. So, and then I personally haven't missed a MAGFest since. This is the fourth one that we've been able to play. We've been fortunate enough to get booked now 4 times, and but yeah, I come every year now, regardless. We have so many friends that attend. It's kind of a no-brainer for me now.
What about yourself, Adam?
Yeah, so my first MAGFest was one that I didn't actually play. I had joined the band, and we were not on it that year because they had played the year before that, I think, or maybe 2 years before that. But Justin had just finished up. We were like about to push through Fate's Delusion and all that stuff. And so my first one was as an attendee, and I was not ready for it. Like, I really didn't know what to come in for and what to expect in it. I mean, MAGFest is such an overwhelming experience of everything you want to do at the same time that it took me a moment. And I'm someone who volunteers security at other very large conventions. So for me, it was like, oh, wow, my interests are all being tickled here. Which direction do I go in? So, I mean, this is a magical place, man. And I have to just say this. Justin mentioned that we've been booked on this 4 times. Every time we get booked at MAGFest, we are luckier to be playing MAGFest because the lineup is spicier every single year. Like Lame Genie this year? I'm sorry. I'm just really stoked that Lame Genie is playing.
No, I found out about them prior to this MAGFest because MAGFest has been introducing me to a lot of bands. And actually,
oh, yeah.
Side note, shout out to Mark Lego, who introduced me to a lot of cool bands throughout the years for Great Bit Live, including...
Shout out to Mark. We love you, Mark.
Mark was the one who introduced me to your band, and I'm very thankful for that. Like, because I've always been like, I loved video game music, and like I heard that they were like cover bands. Like, I think I heard about the 1UPs and stuff like that, but I didn't really try seeking it out. Sure. And then then I heard about Megaran, who is actually now my favorite rapper. I'm not huge into hip hop, but like I love that dude's stuff. And
I mean, he did write your favorite song.
Yes, this is my favorite song off of the Random album. But it's just thanks to Mark setting me down that rabbit hole that I ended up at MAGFest. And a shout out to Sam from Super Guitar Bros, because he was the one who planted the seed into my mind for going to MAGFest, because I always thought that MAGFest was in Washington, the state.
Far away land.
And I was like, I'll never be able to go to that, because it was in 2016. Sam was like, bro, you got to go, bro. bro, you got to go. And I'm like, dude, it's like December 2016. It's like, dude, it's too late. It's in Washington. I can't make it out there. And then a year later, I was like, because I work in the hospital. I think I mentioned the story to you, but I didn't really mention this online. I was like talking to a patient who happened to be a friend of mine, and she's like, MAGFest is coming up. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And I left her room immediately. Just didn't even say bye. Just left. And I was like, she doesn't even need me. She's waiting for x-ray results. And just looked online, and I was like, okay, that's when it is. I have that weekend off. Where is it? Okay, that's a 10.5-hour drive one way from Michigan. I can do that, or I can fly that. Oh, I'm going to MAGFest. So 2018 was my first MAGFest. Blew my mind. And honestly, I think it's just going to be a yearly vacation for me. It's like I've been thinking about it like all throughout 2018. That con rejuvenated me, because like in 2017, it was like a shitty year for my geek scene, to the point, like, for those in the know, I'm not going to talk about the situation behind the scenes. I was actually going to just stop doing my geek scene altogether, because unnecessary backstage con drama. And I was like, if this is the shit that I have to deal with, why bother?
Sure.
It's like, I'm not getting paid a lot for this. So I was going to just say, screw it, and just leave. And then I decided to pick myself up off the ground, because I'm a grown man. And I went to MAGFest, and I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. I got to do this. And it actually rejuvenated me as far as going to conventions.
That's cool, man.
I believe it. Funny you say that, because I guess that's how it happened with me with music. Like it really rejuvenated my desire to like play out more, because as he said, that his first MAGFest was extremely overwhelming. That was exactly my reaction. I think the entire band's reaction at the time. We walked in and we're just like, this stage is for us. Like what? Like what are these people like? Are we in the right place? Like, because we're used to playing, American Legion halls and bowling alleys
and smaller conventions that I've seen you at.
Yeah,
bars.
But that all happened after first MAGFest. The first MAGFest was one of our first legit shows. We played a few local shows prior to getting the to like really shooting for the MAGFest thing, because we wanted to have at least a few concerts under our belt, and we had to record some live videos to showcase to MAGFest. We followed all the rules, and we were really fortunate to get booked. Luckily, we did it when we did, because it's a lot harder to get that foot in the door now to MAGFest. There's the amount of game cover bands or game tribute bands or just quote unquote nerdy musicians that are able to play this event has.
And the talent level too
is yeah. So we're
high.
Lucky, because not only are we maybe not talented enough, I feel like we got lucky because I'm joking, of course, because we had to. I guess it was. Not saying that we didn't work hard to get on MAGFest, but we do feel like the stakes are a little higher now, and it's a little bit more difficult for younger bands to get their foot in the door.
That's fair. And speaking of MAGFest, you are main eventing this Saturday night. So do you have anything special planned for the show?
Well, we just put out a new album, War of the Triad, which is a Final Fantasy. It's a Super Nintendo themed Final
Which
Fantasy
I'll cover
album.
for the last topic here, sir.
So we are going to play, I think we're playing 5 songs from that album tonight. Having a backlog of albums, we can't just do we're playing the whole album start to finish. As cool as that would be for us, that wouldn't be as cool for everybody else. And we are seasoned enough to know that. The idea was talked about, but so we got a little bit of. There's at least something from every album. We try to represent as many of the games as possible while keeping it fresh. We're not playing like the Final Fantasy II song anymore, because we played that for 3 years at every show. So some sacrifices like that have to be made to make room for newer material and for the hits. And people want to hear Final Fantasy VII. Like we can't play a show without playing some music from that game.
No, that's fair.
And so it's like I guess that's part of every band with multiple releases, is you got to find that balance of what is fun for you and what people want to hear, regardless of how tired you are of playing the Final Fantasy VII medley or whatever. Yeah, the battle theme. It's like that's never leaving our set, probably.
I mean,
let's be honest.
Since this interview is going to be out long after your set, is there anything special production-wise that you're planning on doing for this show?
Yeah, actually, this is going to be the second time now where I recently started to dabble in for me, the very fun world of light programming. So we've been dabbling with stage lights ever since that great bit that we played was the first time where we kind of tested it out. We bought some cans and we programmed them to our set, and it worked out cool. It was a learning process, and we kind of slowly added more and more lights to our set. It's kind of become like a side hobby for myself. So trying to find that balance of like, okay, this is fun, but is it feasible to bring into the live set? Because it's like we only have our van is only so big, and so on and so forth. So now what I've started to do with the bigger productions like MAGFest is working with them ahead of time and working to patch into the stage lights through the commands that we have already pre-programmed. So we are going to be using some house lights. They're going to be like synced into our show, which is going to be pretty exciting. We tried it at Mag Labs back in September, and it worked fairly well. So we have a lot more to work with this stage. So So we don't have access to all the lights, but we have access to some of the stage lights that we're going to be kind of programming along with our set. So
I can only imagine like a few years down the road, you'll have like the Nine Inch Nails level of set production because the light shows for that.
We've joked about like how if there's a way to do something, like I'll find a way to do it in the band, even if it's totally like not a good idea. So it's always that balance of like for example, we played a show with our friends from Power Glove. They were on tour in August, and we played the show with their Chicagoland show, and luckily we were direct support for them. If we were first out of the 5 bands, we probably wouldn't have brought any of our stage lights because let's be honest, like opening band should not be showing up the.
Don't even get me started on that, dude. Because like when I told him about like when I went and saw Power Glove the next night, I'm sorry to cut you off. Like the opening bands, all of them were like getting progressively worse as it was up. Like one dude was like, I swear they were doing a pirate sea shanty at one point, dude. The only thing that was missing was the R vocals, but it's like it was terrible. And you know a band is bad when like the house lights come on mid set just to cut them off, like get off the stage, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for that rant,
but that's a fair point you make because that's honestly kind of like a. I mean, let's just say that we've definitely seen our fair share of that too. You know, I mean that's more of a promotional, like a promoter issue, like not knowing how to bill his lineup and stuff like that. But yeah, back to my point though, like we have more lights that we could have brought for that show, but we know our place and we know what's feasible, and we know we have respect for promoters and venues and stage crew, so we try to be as reasonable as possible while knowing our place. But with a production like MAGFest, we know that like, hey, we have the means to do this, and it's not going to hugely inconvenience anybody.
That's right.
So it's about knowing when to ask for stuff too.
You know, part of what makes MAGFest fun for stuff like this is because we are actually dealing with the best of the best. You know what I mean? The best of the best stage crew, and it makes it possible for us to patch into the lighting universe, and it makes it possible to have an awesome live sound. But there's another really cool thing in our set that, since this is being posted after our set, that we can talk about, and that is this is the first time this is the most games we've ever covered in a set. Right?
Yeah, I guess it is.
And it's really exciting because it's the first time, like there are like sneaky like in between songs motifs from other games and stuff. Like we're covering the most we possibly can, and it's I'm gonna be honest, like this is the most exciting set that I've played in the band, you know, in the 3.5 years that I've been playing with them. So I'm not gonna tell you what it is.
Please don't.
Because
I don't want to have it spoiled for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't, because that's why I wouldn't. But it is special, and it's probably going to feel special. And it feels special to us because for me, like, remember that I was a fan before I joined the band, right? So, like, it's really cool to learn songs that the band hasn't played since before I joined. They used to play them a million years ago. They loved them. The audience asks for them. Well, now we get to play them here and there. You know what I mean? And we're being more progressive with it. And we're putting some medleys together here and there, and we're taking risks. And it's a lot of fun. I don't know. I wanted to bring that up because it is something special. And I think that the music side of the set is probably even more exciting than the visual side as a fan. Like for me, I'm stoked.
Yeah. So from I tallied it the other day. I hope I remember this right. Our set time is 45 minutes. We are playing not necessarily entire songs, but we made some medleys to kind of cover as much ground as we can. I think we are playing in some form 19 songs tomorrow.
Nice. I mean, I'm totally looking forward to the set. And on a side note, I'm so proud of it's not like you need my validation, but I'm so proud of how far you guys have come.
We're glad that we have it. We're glad that we have your validation.
I mean, like when I met you a few years ago at Great Bit Live 3, I was like, yeah, like I said at the beginning of the interview, I had very little knowledge of you, and
sure.
It showed in that last interview. But as I started to follow your music and became friends with you guys, I was just like, wow. And then when I saw that you were on at MAGFest on stage, I watched your content. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then when 2019, you're main eventing Saturday night, one of the last 3 bands to be performing, I was like, that is so awesome that these dudes have come so far along that they're going to be crushing it on stage. And
Thanks,
I'm
man. We're
really
really
proud of
excited.
how far you guys come.
Thank you very much. And I guess we can talk about it now since this is going to be posted after. We're actually playing PAX in 2 weeks also.
Oh, okay.
So we're going down to PAX. We're doing PAX South.
I'm so jealous that you get to go to that, man. I've not been to that.
It's going to be our first fly-in gig as a band, so we're really stoked on that. It's kind of a bucket list item for me. I'm glad that we have the chance to do that.
Nice. Yeah. So, I mean, we should now, as we're finishing up this interview, we should at least talk about your last album, So your last album, your latest album, should I say, War of the Triad.
Yeah.
Why did you focus on the games 4 through 6 of the series?
We had a lot of fun with the Sin album. I think we had a lot of fun deciding on a theme and kind of doing a theme. I think all of us are fans of like concept albums and thematic elements in albums, whether or not the albums necessarily are entirely conceptual. We had a ton of fun from everything from the working on like the teaser trailer and Adam doing the artwork and having the Final Fantasy X theme a part of having Sin be all Final Fantasy X. We just, I don't know, we had so much fun doing that. I knew we wanted to do it again in some capacity. I think I mentioned it maybe a year and a half ago, like to them that like, hey, I had this idea. I think it's time that we pay a little bit more tribute to the Super Nintendo side of the soundtrack, because the first few albums had a lot of 7, a lot of 8, a lot of 9, with the occasional song from the Nintendo and Super Nintendo era. So it was a mix of having a lot of fun doing the Sin EP with the conceptual side of it, and realizing that we don't do enough from 4, 5, and 6, because the soundtracks are amazing, and I don't know, it was a combination of both those things, I think.
Okay, and why is Dancing Mad your favorite song that you've worked on?
Dancing Mad is
Well, actually, before you go into that, I will have to cut you off for a second.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that I enjoyed the 3 genre variations of Prelude on War of the Triad. I especially liked how Final Fantasy VI's version had an 80s synth vibe going. I forgot to mention that. I'm
Thanks.
sorry for cutting you off.
No, yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
It was really cool.
Yeah, thanks. The original idea was that 3 of us were going to independently arrange a version of the Prelude, so it would have 3 totally different vibes. I think Justin Wilbanks cranked his version out. He actually arranged the first one, where it's just where there's like the synth and then the 2 guitars. That was arranged by Justin Wilbanks. I did the Final Fantasy V version, and then the Final Fantasy VI version was actually the last one to be written.
Yeah, because I was going to work on that one, and the idea was for it to be a synth pop one, because I have interests in genres that these guys just don't listen to really at all, and I wanted to kind of bring some of that into it. And I don't know production well enough to kind of move the needle far along enough on my own, and Justin just kind of ran with it. But the benefit there is that I get to play that live. Like, that's one of my favorite parts of the set.
Nice.
And it's really awesome. It's definitely my favorite.
Oh, okay.
No, but yeah.
It's the one I'm giving you, but it's in there.
All right,
Yeah.
that's fair. So as you were saying about Dancing Mad?
Yeah, so Dancing Mad is it's that and One Winged Angel are the 2 that we've probably been requested most from fans, and it's a really intimidating song. And so I guess the fact that it came out as good as it did, with being a song that was originally 17 whatever minutes, it's like a 7 movement symphony piece, symphonic piece. So the fact that I was able to cram most of it in to a 7-minute long track on the album, I think it flows really well. I don't know. I think it's just, I don't know. I've just never felt the satisfaction of finishing an arrangement like I have with Dancing Mad. It just, I don't know. I guess I'm just the most proud of it because it was quite an undertaking, having to learn all that and arrange it so that it wasn't a straight cover. It was we had our own little flair in it. And
But there's also the fact that like you've made comments before about the Black Mages doing it perfectly, right? So there's an element of like, do we want to approach that? And I know that you went through that at some phase. Yeah.
Well, not only did the Black Mages do a perfect cover of it, but Tony Dickinson from Tiberian Sons, he did a video, or sorry, he did a cover not sure if it was for. I think he did it for Overclock Remix, but I think it's on YouTube also. He did a mashup of One Winged Angel and Dancing Mad, and it is spectacular. And if there's one person to be musically intimidated by, it's him.
I think that's actually on their the Tiberian Sons
It is.
Collateral Jamage album, which I
Yeah,
purchased.
I forgot they re-recorded it for that album too. Yeah, so, and he's obviously extremely talented. He's a part of Trans-Siberian Orchestra now, if you didn't know.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, he plays bass for Trans East. Yeah, so.
Siberian. Okay.
But
Open for him tomorrow night.
but he put out an amazing cover of both of those songs called Prancing Dad, I believe he called it.
Yes, that's
But so that in addition to the Black Mages cover and then countless other versions I've heard that I liked, it's just like, well, how the hell do I do this while paying homage to the song, not completely wrecking the song and keeping it us. And that one actually was worked on in 2 different phases. I think I showed the guys the original, like the intro, and then the first 2 riffs I had done. That was maybe like the 3rd song I wrote for War of the Triad. I wrote maybe 3 or 4 more songs and then decided to go back and finish it kind of with a fresh set of ears. So that played a part into it too. I don't necessarily do that when I write. So the fact that I did that and pulled it off is another thing that I'm kind of proud of on that arrangement in particular.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, I thought you did a good job.
Thank you.
But final 2 questions. If people wanted to find out more about you online, where could they go?
Sure. So the easiest thing is just to go to our .com, nightoftheround.com, and then from there it takes you to our Bandcamp, which then has all of our music and our merch store. So we try to make it as easy as possible for everybody. So nightoftheround.com. We're also available on pretty much all streaming platforms, in addition to iTunes, Google Play, Bandcamp, of course, Spotify, Deezer, all that stuff.
And what would you like to say to all your fans throughout the years?
Wow. I mean, of course, thank you for the support. The fact that I started this over 10 years ago and as a solo project and then turning it into a live band 7 years ago. The fact that we are, like you said, like one of the final 3 bands of Saturday Night MAGFest is beyond humbling. Like just saying thank you to my fans is literally nowhere near what I should be saying. I can't put into words how appreciative I am to all the people that have bought our albums and who continue to support our albums and our work that we do.
What I would say to our fans is I hope that when you listen to our music or when you see us play, you're having as much fun as I am, because this is like Bizarro land, and I got here by approaching one of my favorite bands at a show in a basement in Chicago. and like I sincerely hope that if you like our music, you enjoy it as much as I do, because it's so much fun to be on stage and I've only seen my band once before I was in it. So it's really crazy to me that I've never watched them play without me on stage before, So I hope that you guys are enjoying it as much as we are, because it is a time. We are having a time up there.
Yeah, and to add to that, we're all aware at how unconventional our music is with the rest of the MAGFest bands. I don't think we necessarily sound like anybody else, and we know that our music is the idea of Final Fantasy and then extreme metal, it's kind of an oxymoron, to an extent. You don't necessarily
I disagree with that statement, sir.
I could potentially too, but most people think of Final Fantasy and they think of cosplayers and
or symphonic metal.
Yeah. You might, and now our fans might.
Who isn't Joe?
Our fans might, but what I'm trying to say is that I know what we do is unconventional, and the fact that we have people that have stuck with us and who have, honestly, the people that have been, and this is nothing against the people who have just discovered us and like our stuff, but the people that have stuck with us since the beginning, even from the YouTube days, when I didn't know what the hell I was doing behind a computer, mixing and mastering. I know our first album sounds a little rough compared to the newer stuff, and the fact that people were able to still appreciate it and still enjoy, the stuff that I like to think that we're still doing, but maybe a little bit better.
Sure.
So thank you to those people in particular who have been there for the past 7 to 10 years, I guess.
Well, Adam and Justin, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
No problem. Folks, this is Joe from My Geek Scene with Justin and Adam from Night of the Round at MAGFest. Take it easy.